Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a new, fresh, out-of-the-box insight session from yours truly, Romanian Academy. Future. And we start simple. Not that we have a choice, really, but because there are so many options for the future. There is that one from writing, the one from conversation, and there is another one, the one with, when you herd sheep, no? You're quite close this time, to be fair. However, about the last one, let's not confuse the viewers. I will get into this third type of future simple in the last part of this video. Well, I will get into all of them for that matter, give you the necessary info, and for all language levels. So whether you just start with it, or you know already the future simple quite well, this video is for you all. As always, like, subscribe, tell us your experience with future, whether it's down here in the comment section or on Discord. The link is in the description. Viitor simplu. Together with the past and the present, they make pretty much most of the indicative tense and most of the tenses you need to be aware of. Obviously, there are others quite important, like the imperfect, more than perfect, and other moods, but sticking to the tenses of the indicative specifically, the future, present, and at least one past would be extremely useful to have in your toolbox. There are two future tenses. There's future simple, viitor simplu, and viitor perfect, future perfect. And in the viitor simplu, there are also three types. We'll get into that in a second. One very, very important and interesting thing that happens here with Viitor simplu is that compared to, for example, past and present, the Viitor simplu doesn't care about the conjugation of the verb. So whether it is an a, ea, e, or I, or even verb, this, the future simple, will always be conjugated in the same way, with the same principles. What I mean by that, we'll see in a second. Now, this was pretty much the intro. This idea is that future simple is quite important to know, whether it's in the first, second, or even third form. You should know one of the three futures. It's very important, and also, as you've just heard, you don't have any dependency on the infinitive, because that's basically what this future not caring about the conjugation, it really means. It doesn't care about the infinitive, so about the ending. So on that note, actually, moving to the first future, the kind of voi form of the future. This is probably the most formal one. We will get into that as well. But this is probably also the one that is taught the most in school. So a few things about this futures, the structure, right? It's made out of an auxiliary and an infinitive. So this auxiliary is a type of a vrea. If you remember, or if you know already, the perfect compus uses a variation of a avea instead. So here, the auxiliary for Viitor 1 is voi for I, vei for you, va for he or she, then vom for we, veți for you, and vor for they. So it would be something like eu voi, tu vei, el, ea va, noi vom, voi veți, ei or ele vor, and then the verb. So if I want to say I will travel, eu voi călători. If I want to say she will jump, ea va sări. And so on. As you might have noticed already, eu voi călători, ea va sări, both use the infinitive of the verb. So sări is the infinitive of to jump, and călători is the infinitive of to travel. Now, the conjugation. So now, taking a very random verb out of the hat, we can talk about a scoate, which means to take out or to pull out. Using the voi form of the verb with the infinitive, this will be eu voi scoate, tu vei scoate, el or ea va scoate, noi vom scoate, voi veți scoate, and ei ele vor scoate. So now we have the conjugation all checked. Perfect. Let's move to some other examples. So now for the examples, I will give you a bit of variation. I will give you one that is affirmative and interrogative. So a question. Vei scoate câinele la plimbare în seara asta? So will you take out the dog for a walk tonight? And the second one is a exclamation, one that ends in an exclamation mark, and the negative one. Nu voi ajunge la timp. As you can see, compared to English, where you have in a normal affirmation like I will take, and then in the question the will go in front, will I take? In Romanian that really doesn't matter. So you will have the voi and infinitive every time you talk about an affirmative, an interrogative, or a negative sentence. We're not talking about objects or any kind of pronouns that will come in between the auxiliary and the verb right now. So coming back to the whiteboard, the examples are also done. I want to give a couple of really important tips here, some watch outs, yeah. So as you can see up here, right, the auxiliary is very close to a vrea. In present tense, a vrea is eu vreau, tu vrei, el vrea, noi vrem, voi vreți, ei ele vor. So careful with that. In the same way you are careful with the, as I said earlier, the perfect compus, because that uses a variation of to have. The second tip here is that the forms are quite similar. So what that means is whether you're talking about I, you, he, she, and so on, you'll use the infinitive, which very rarely happens in Romanian. You have it for the future simple, and you will have it for the conditional. Other than that, there are not many places you will use the infinitive unless it's actually infinitive. Now, the reason I say this is for you to be extra aware with the auxiliaries. That's where all the future tense can be spotted in the auxiliary up here in voi, vei, va, vom, veți, vor. That is where you know the speaker and the listener say and understand exactly who you're talking about. So we can note this down with a tick and we can move on to the future 2, Viitorul simplu 2, the one with o să. Probably one that many people are quite comfortable with, especially if you know the conjunctive already, but probably for a beginner it's a bit more tricky. The reason for that, because it uses conjunctive, which is, you know, it uses different forms of the verb compared to the future 1, where you just need to use infinitive every time. As you can see here, the structure is quite simple. It's O, this is the letter O, not the 0, plus conjunctive. So the să form of the verb, that's a mood, not a tense. We have a link up here for the conjunctive video where you can learn more about it. Let's take an example with a random verb. In this instance, let's take arăta, to show or to look. So because it uses conjunctive, you will see a little difference in the third person. Eu o să arăt, tu o să arăți, el, ea o să arate, noi o să arătăm, voi o să arătați, ele o să arate. See how the verb changes in the third person from the present tense. Again, if you're not familiar with why that happens, watch the conjunctive or subjunctive video. So we have the structure and the conjugation completed. Let's move to some examples. I will try to demonstrate exactly the same principle as it was earlier with the voi form or the future one. The fact that the auxiliary, in this case, you can already talk about an auxiliary, it's just the O, but whether we talk about the nu, so the negative, the affirmative or question, we will have the same order. So the first example, nu o să arăți ciudat cu pălăria aia. And the second one, o să arate la toată lumea talentul lui. You can see that, as always, the nu goes in front and the o and the să stay together. Once again, this will not apply necessarily about the direct and indirect objects, but until then, there's a long way. So now we're good with the examples too. We can move to some tips about this this form of the future, the o să form, future 2. The first one that I would say is, obviously, be careful with conjunctive or subjunctive. Again, I will use those interchangeably. Take extra care with the third person. Yeah, so that means the vowel change. That's very important to know. The vowel changes in the third person. Please watch the subjunctive video if you don't know what I'm talking about. And also, the O needs to be there. I have seen in the past people that just skip the O and go using the conjunctive, thinking that means the future. I see why that happens, and that's usually to do with what exactly it means, what people understand by it. For that, we will have a special section towards the end. And obviously, it's in front, right? So don't put the O in other places. We're not talking about the O from the direct object, third person singular, feminine. We're not talking about her. We're talking about just a random letter that was assigned for this tense, and it's o să merg, o să arăt. So that is done as well. Let's move to the third one, the one with am să. This one is a little bit different and a little bit special. I will mention very briefly what is the difference between this one and the second one, because they are kind of similar, but not really. And I will do that a bit later. If you're not aware of this, many Romanians use this am să, but it has a slightly different twist, a slightly different meaning. I will get into that in a second. So, regarding the structure of this third future, it's literally a avea plus conjunctive. How easy can that be? Now, moving to conjugation, we have a verb like a reuși this time, because why not? Which means to manage or to succeed. So the conjugation in the third future simple will be am să reușesc, ai să reușești, are să reușească, avem să reușim, aveți să reușiți, au să reușească. So the conjugation is also done. Let's move now to a couple of examples. Same principle, I'll try to give you some variety, whether we're talking about a negative or an affirmative sentence. The first one is, nu am să reușesc niciodată. Translates to something like, I will never be able to make it. The second one is, au să reușească la facultate fără niciun stres. Which translates to, they will manage, they will be able to get into the university without any stress, without any concern. Now the examples are also done and over. Let's move to these tips. Watch out for those, because here especially there's a very interesting thing that happens. So first, the auxiliary, yes, it's to have. I know Romanian is a bit confusing sometimes and things get all over the place, and a avea is conjugated in one way in the present tense and in another way for the auxiliary of the perfect compus, and here we go back to a avea. So here is a avea. Eu am, tu ai, el are, not el a, for example. Next, the conjunctive is used, so careful with the third person, but you know, I can only say it that much. You will probably notice at some point if you're using it wrong, hopefully sooner rather than later. Also, there is a very, very important aspect here, but I will talk a little bit more about that in a second when we talk about the usage of these verbs, where they are used, in what context, what they mean, and so on. So until then, I would say, let's check this out as well. So I guess we can move to the last couple of things, the usage and what people understand when you use one of those three future simple tenses things that we have been talking about until now. So in terms of usage, when we use this voi, eu voi merge, this is usually quite formal. As I said, anybody teaches you this as probably the first future. When you learn it in school, it is used in both written and spoken form, and it is, let's say, the most correct form. Although, very important, although, this also is taught as well, and it is correct, and it is in the grammar books and in the textbooks and everything all the books you want. So those two are called popular. Those two are popular futures. This is a no, popular. But not in the sense popular like on TikTok, right? We're talking about in Romanian, popular means something from the country. So from the country or the countryside. This is the sense of popular it is meant here with osa and amse. Popular means that, for example, most of Transylvania and Moldova will use osa, but it is definitely less used in the south. It is also, obviously, depending on the region, you'll get slight variations of the sounds, of the letters that you get next to those O, for example, or the S. In some places you can hear se instead of S, which is mind-blowing for people that are trying to get the gist of the reflexive versus the conjunctive. And also O, right? Like O can become in some areas or. For example, in Crișana, next to Oradea or Timișoara, you'll hear ois in Moldova. So that's why I'm trying to tell you all this. Depending on where you are, you'll hear various adaptations. I think this is the right term. There are various adaptations to local customs and traditions and culture and so on. So osa and amse, very popular in Transylvania and Moldova. Probably this one by far more used than this one. And it's used, this one is actually used, can be used, you can find it in informal writing. However, this one not so much. Also, it's important to be aware of what people understand by them, to see why it's not used in writing really that much. One very distinctive characteristic of amse is that this one, it's a bit more assertive. It sounds a bit more assertive when you use it. Like you are a bit more confident that whatever this action is that you're saying, like for example, am să merg, you want to, or you're confident that you're going to take the steps into going. Whether it will fail or not, and you'll, I don't know, some spontaneous plan will come on the way, that is about to see, but you are quite confident that will happen. Now, finally, we're moving to what people understand. So this is quite interesting as well. The voi is like the English I will. I'm talking here about the first person just because it's easier. So it's similar to I will. The os is a bit more similar to I am going to. And the am să is a bit closer to I am planning to. I haven't done this writing on the whiteboard in a while, so excuse me for that. Yeah, so they are slightly different when it comes to what people understand and how it's used based on that. They all express future. They all have nuances. The more advanced you will get, obviously, the more comfortable you will be to use this. I would say the voi form is an A kind of level. Yeah, A1, A2. Then you will want to learn the o să form when you're confident with the conjunctive in B, B1, B2, and then am să, I have to be honest with you, you will use it when you're surrounded by Romanians, when you get comfortable with many aspects of the grammar, somewhere in the C levels. So this is the way I would recommend you putting effort into learning the three of them. The forms of the future, depending on the three types just studied right now, and the objects, direct and indirect, can be an absolute nightmare for somebody who starts to learn or speak Romanian. Why? Because of the order and how the auxiliaries, the tiny objects, all those little words that sometimes you find 5 of them in a row in Romanian, and the hyphens as well, make your head explode. But worry not. For that we'll have a special video this season in the Romanian Academy, together with other interesting things about future. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this. There's a Christmas special coming soon, wrapping up the year, and also some sarmale. In the meanwhile, I'm sending my holiday greetings, and until the next time, la revedere!